What's going on, YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the channel. It's your boy Devin Coates coming to you with part 2, Laws in Human Nature and COVID. So this one is about the chapter on conformity. The law of conformity, resist the downward pull of the group. It can be found on page 391 if you want to read the chapter yourself. So I'll quickly summarize the story that he used to explain it, and then I will, tie it to and continue on from where I left off on the last one. So this story is about the Cultural Revolution in China. It was very interesting to me because it took place in like around the 60s, and it's something I just never heard of in terms of that happening in history, and it's something that I could very well see being more promoted, but I digress there. Main character in this is, his name is Jing Hua, and essentially he starts going to a middle school, meets his friend Fang Pu, and during this time that they're there, Mao is basically saying that there's basically this big debate that's being in all of the newspaper, all the writing, that there are these literary types that are kind of being very critical towards Mao and his reign and the way he's teaching, and then also that there is this elitist culture and like authoritarian hierarchy from the past that communism was supposed to wipe out that is still remaining, and he's calling these people like revisionists that are sticking to the old ways and don't want to move forward. So at first it just turns out to be like a little debate in the papers. As it starts to grow, it starts to become like kind of the rage of the whole country. It's what everybody's talking about. And then in this particular school, the teachers and assembly people are like, make posters, explaining how you feel about it, and hang it on the walls. So it goes on to this, to a point where Mao makes a declaration that people need to start basically being more revolutionary. He basically starts telling people that they need to be more revolutionary, and he calls it Zaofan. And that is, it means to turn things upside down. And essentially what this ends up sparking is that the kids start to make claims, and in this particular school ran by more so Fang Pu, start to make claims on different teachers and principals, and it just really starts to escalate to the point where they're like torturing teachers, trying to get them to confess that they're actually like anti-communist and things of that sort. And these kids, because this is part of what Mao said, that the young should be part of more of the revolution here, they're taking these orders and like basically flipping the whole school on top of its head. And it goes so far that at a certain point the kids are basically running the school, and there are no more teachers by that summer. They get the principal, all these different people, and basically Jinghua, his friend Fang Pu's kind of running a lot of this. He kind of became the leader. He has now also become part of that particular group, and he's pretty proud of it. He goes back home. He sees his dad, his brother. Basically his dad is in a whole different part of China where he was a respected like teacher or something, and basically he saw the same fate, like he was all beat up and stuff, that a lot of the teachers at YMS were feeling. It's kind of made him feel weird. By the time he went back, he really didn't want to necessarily be part of this, be part of all that, but basically Fang Pu had now like grown his operation. Him and this dude they call Little Ba Wang basically are running a whole army or something, some or another, that is the East is Red Corps, and basically they're trying to promote that they're the true tellings of Mao. And then there is the Red Rebels, which is another one, but they're more of like the non-violent type, and they don't really like East is Red because they're a little bit too like intolerant and things like that. Long story short, Jinghua joins this. Over the next I think it seemed like basically like a year, it just turns into literal war. Like all the teachers have fled the schools, so it's just kids running it. They're like torturing each other. People are literally like, kids are literally dying. They're like gagging them, putting them in trunks and driving around the desert, and people are suffocating. People have been tortured to death. All these girls are getting gang raped, and like in their torture sessions, villagers are running. They're basically like getting supplies and bombs, and it literally turns into an actual war there. And long story short, it goes for like 8 months to a year. Soldiers have to come in to break everything up. Fast forward to, I think it was like in the late 70s, early 80s. Once Mao actually died, the whole country had to basically apologize and said it was like one of the worst things that ever happened in the whole history of the country. It's like a huge stain. But essentially it broke down into complete chaos. A lot of people died, a lot of things were destroyed, and it was a very short amount of time, and it took a long time for things to, basically recover. I skipped a couple things in the story, but that's basically the gist of it. If you want to get more, just read the fucking book. Now kind of just want to interpret, where this was coming from. So Mao's whole idea was that he felt like there was arcs of the past that were still in place, like hierarchies, authority, private rank, when everything's supposed to be equal in communism. And he thought that, kind of giving the low to, turn everything up on its head, it would eradicate all of that. But the end result really was the same exact thing. That it's like kind of like Lord of the Flies and stuff, if you've read that book, but I won't even use that. But essentially, you tried to remove the hierarchy, but once you took out everybody in power, a new hierarchy became, in store, based on, not that much real logic or anything like that. So you take out all the leaders, the aggressive people are going to jump to the front because they're the ones pushing up, and then it now becomes the same thing that you didn't want. And that was kind of, the lack of understanding from him in terms of what he professed and thought was going to solve the problem. So to tie it to what's going on now, I do want to kind of start off with a quote that I believe was from Nietzsche, that is in it's in the book as well, but it says, madness is something rare in individuals, but in groups, parties, peoples, and ages, it's the rule. So, generally when you're by yourself, you can have a lot more clear thoughts, but everybody has to kind of admit to the fact that when you do get into a group setting, you're kind of infected with the feelings of the group. It's way harder to, assert your own opinion when 99 people around you are saying the opposite right in front of your face than if you were alone and had to write it on a piece of paper, for example. So, at this point, with the whole COVID thing, from a medical standpoint, I think it's definitely splintering people. From a political standpoint, I definitely think it's splintering people. And also just from a fear standpoint, a lot of people are in this hyper anxious state. So, kind of in terms of a lot of things that are coming in the media about like conspiracy theories, about, the disease not being that effective, it being, something that's super deadly to, we need all these different, social plans and things like that. I think most of what you're hearing are not super well thought out thoughts. It's just kind of immediate reactions, and people feel like they need to jump to a side, and like basically having that allegiance to a side is going to kind of protect you from whatever your insecurities or anxieties are. But a lot of this is kind of a negative, primal us versus them type of thinking of, where you want to go. And a lot of it is not really, most likely not aligned to your actual long-term goals of what you actually want to do. So, common themes are basically to blame whatever, political party you're not part of as being, the problem, the reason why it's around. Whatever you feel medically, you basically blame the other side on, the economy's fucked up because everybody's staying inside. The economy's fucked up because people can't stay inside and we can't pass this. And then also people are losing, jobs, being laid off. I know I'm kind of somebody that's also in that boat as well. And then there's a lot of just kind of negativity towards that. Job market sucks. What am I going to do? Government needs to bail me out. Where's my Trump bucks? My money didn't come. The $600 stimulus. And while some of these are probably legitimate and things that, confront, pay attention, get your money, do those kind of things. But at the end of the day, this probably had nothing to do with your long-term plans prior to COVID. In terms of your way getting out, focusing on these things are probably not that beneficial. But it all is very acceptable socially to be like this, to be on Facebook and to spout any of the ideas I said. There is a group that will be, you can join, that you can spew all this information and people will gobble it up. But really that's just kind of a madness that is kind of materializing from your primal nature to respond to the anxiety and fear that you feel at this time, and it's not necessarily going to be anything beneficial for you moving forward. So really, I kind of look at it like the main thing is you probably want to detach from a lot of what is going on around you, since at this point people are kind of in a very big panic mode. And if that quote says that in groups it's the rule normally, this is kind of even a heightened sense where it's going to be even more panicky. So really kind of removing yourself from that, I think, is kind of paramount, and kind of just focusing on what you had to do prior to this. And to give the only real reversal to this is for you to kind of, look at people that aren't responding in that way, that are kind of taking a novel approach, because those people are out there. I know if you're watching this, you're probably kind of tuned into some of that, but looking more towards what am I going to do as an individual to kind of get through this and push myself through and hit my goals, as opposed to reacting to what everybody else is reacting to, like because it's just affecting you, that their reactions, that because a lot of people are having that reaction, that it somehow validates that as the correct action. It might be an acceptable, understandable and rational reaction from the standpoint of everybody else is doing it, but it might not be correct and optimal for what you're particularly trying to do. So that's really it for this one. That's part 2. Part 3 and the final one will be coming in a couple days. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you liked it, like, comment, subscribe. Don't like, I don't really care, any feedback will do. And until next time, peace.